Here we go. And now we're live. Cool. Let's wait for some people to come in. Let's take a look. Who's here? Okay. Studio chat. Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. Mediavine Con is next week in Boston. Definitely looking forward to all the seafood that I'll be eating.
All the clam chowder, I hope.
All the clam chowder. I was looking at something called the Freedom Trail. Right? Is that you know about this? It's
it's a thing, yeah. In my younger days, when I lived in Boston, you could drink the Freedom Trail. Or in my older days, I go for the more historical parts of it. But yeah, it's a good walk.
Right. Just got to dress appropriately for it. It's going to be super cold.
It will be, but
and windy, from what I'm told. So we'll
worth it.
Worth it. Right. Awesome. All right, we got some people coming in. Nice. All right. So I'm here today with Mr. Eric, the CEO and co-founder of Mediavine. We're going to be talking about ads. We're going to be talking about user experience and a little bit about about SEO. I'm actually very excited. I'm very excited for this conversation because I know nothing. I know nothing about what happens on the ad side. And we work with a lot of publishers, so Mediavine, and there's a lot of questions that come up where I'm just like, I'm just an SEO guy. I have no knowledge or expertise. So I'm very excited for this conversation. Before we get started, just a quick reminder to everyone, if you have a question during the webinar, please type the letter Q before your question in the chat. Melissa, our awesome moderator, is in the background pressing all the cool buttons for us. She'll catch them in the queue and she'll put them up for us so we can answer your questions in the Q&A. I'm going to skip all the formal introductions. I want to get straight to talking about ad density. Eric, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Good. Is that our formal introduction?
That's our formal introduction. Cool. All right. So without further ado, let's dive into this. And with these webinars, what happens is when people register, they ask questions. And what we've done is we've condensed these questions into topics, and we're going to go through these. So these are questions directly from people who've registered for the webinar. So right away, some of the questions that are coming up are about ad density and best practices. What is the current recommended ad density? And how should publishers determine the right percentage or placement strategy for their sites?
Ooh, it's a fun question, especially at this time. All right, I'm going to geek out about ads. So just stop me if I get too into the weeds here. So everything used to be about ad density when the Coalition for Better Ads set a standard of basically run 30% or lower ad density. So that's ads to content ratio. And that's kind of what we all followed. And then there's before that, the Google ad policy of no more than 50% ad to content policy. So that is the official ad content or the ad density requirements. The industry has recently moved away from that. So what we're seeing now is a move to more measuring how many impressions users are seeing per session per minute. That's a popular one we've seen from Jounce. We've seen other impression-based things. Some things are still density-based, but we're moving away overall at Mediavine from hyper-focusing on density and moving more towards user experience, or really how are we measuring up on these advertiser rankings. So as much as I'd love to be able to give you an easy answer of saying, 26% is the right answer, I don't think that is the right measurement anymore. So we're kind of moving away from ad density, which is why we released optimized ad experience. But in general, go on.
Sorry, that's really interesting. So you're looking at it not so much from a density perspective, but impressions, right? So you're looking at how frequently these ads are appearing.
Exactly. Really the way I think that advertisers are looking at it, and that's a lot of the lens in which we look at it, because at the end of the day, even though we represent the publishers, if we want our publishers to get paid, we need happy advertisers. So everything we do is, how do advertisers think about this experience? They have a couple things. They do the screenshot test, which is how many ads are in a particular screen view when the random media buyer takes a screenshot. And that can be very painful, right? You could always find on a site, maybe a screenshot with 5 ads. It's a very bad look to an advertiser. So that's one way in which we're evaluating user experience. What does the whole page look like? And then you have things like how many, like I said, impressions per session per minute. So that's really, are we refreshing ads too quickly? Are there too many ads appearing too close together? There's a lot of different ways in which that can happen.
Is this something that's also tracked by device? Is it different for desktop and mobile?
Yeah, so it really depends on how sophisticated these different algorithms are that are measuring it. And I wish I could tell you they were super sophisticated. You would think they are. But yes, in general, you can assume that it will be different on desktop compared to mobile, even though the unfortunate reality is a lot of media buyers are going to be looking at this on their computer. So you can think desktop is going to be still important even if you don't have a lot of desktop traffic, because a lot of people who are judging your site are doing it from their work computer.
Right. So I'm assuming now that this is the way that they look at it. The content length, paragraph placement, all of that is that still relevant?
I mean, we still think it's relevant because we can get into the optimized ad experience, like the actual logic behind it of why it's important.
Right.
But yes, I would say your content length is still going to determine how many ads you can insert in, depending on, I would say, the engagement of the user, right? And Mediavine especially, we are not about shoving in as many ads as we can get. I know that was probably more of the ad style from 5 years ago. At this point, what we're really looking at is where is the user most engaged, and let's get the ads there and not focus as many on in the content that are just getting scrolled past, which are going to make those metrics look bad.
That's really interesting. So you're basically determining where the ad should be placed and what kind of ad and the frequency based on where the user's attention is within that content.
Yeah, and definitely based on the device they're using. I wish the measurement was as sophisticated, but Mediavine definitely is doing it based upon the device.
That's interesting. And this is all a part of the optimized ad experience right now.
Correct.
Awesome. I love that. One of the questions that came in was about revenue and user experience. And this is kind of where a lot of the questions, especially when I do coaching and when I talk to publishers, that's where it is. So how can publishers strike a right balance between maximizing revenue and maintaining a positive user experience, especially when they don't want pages to feel overrun by ads?
And that is a fair request. I would say first, obviously, I'm going to shill for obviously my favorite thing, which would be turning on optimized ad experience. Right. But in addition to that, I want everyone to think about, focus on, again, where's your user most engaged? So, and that's really going to determine this. If you shove a bunch of ads in the content that users aren't even looking for, you're going to make your page feel overloaded by ads. And by the time they get down to, if you're a food blogger, down to the recipe card, they might have just scrolled past 20 ads or however long your content is. And those ads didn't really make you the money you think it is because their user wasn't engaged in that part of the page. So really, I think what you should focus on isn't the total number of ads you have in the page, but really what is the user experience like where the user is most engaged.
So Google, we know that Google discourages above the fold ads. And they have a way they render the page and they take a look at it. And a lot of it is about overwhelming the user. Mm-hmm. How does this factor into it? How does the optimized ad experience deal with that?
So I would say Mediavine in general has always kind of discouraged the above the fold ads, especially with the advent of Core Web Vitals. I know we started at that point, it was honestly, a lot of it was CLS driven at that point, because if you were trying to render an ad above the fold, it was almost impossible not to cause CLS unless it was an adhesion that stuck on the page. Right. So overall, you don't even need optimized ad experience. If you're with Mediavine, we try to avoid above the fold ads. We slowly have deprecated things like the leaderboard or the top sidebar ad in favor of ads that are below the fold for that exact reason. Google search is obviously a lot of the driver. So we have to always separate Google search from Google Ad Exchange. So Ad Exchange is who we work with, or Ad Manager, who are going to encourage us to put as many ads above the fold as you can. And then you have the search side that are no ads above the fold. So that is the direction that Mediavine took as well.
Is there any, and maybe you've done some kind of analysis internally, but is there any behavioral metric like scroll depth, bounce, or session duration that reveal any kind of user experience strain from ads on the page?
So the one that we track internally is session duration. Is the one that we use as kind of our guiding light for what did that do for user experience. The problem is a lot of the other ones like bounce rate, I know can be, I'm going to just say modified. We'll go with the nicest word I can come up with.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you change, like you fire one event and suddenly
right.
make your bounce rate look really low. So the one we track is session duration. We've only seen positive session duration increases from people that have turned on optimized ad experience. I mean, it's pretty safe to assume fewer ads mean happier users at the end of the day.
Right. For those who haven't turned on the optimized ad experience, at which point do you think there's like a diminishing returns, so like more extra ads stop increasing like RPM or your ability to earn?
Seven ads is the point. No, I can't give an exact number. I think in general, though, if like you look at your dashboard at Mediavine, I know we will show you by ad unit how your different ads are performing. And I think recipe bloggers have it best because the recipe card ad is literally targeted where your user is most engaged. Right. You can just see firsthand what diminishing returns look like. Look at how your in-content ads perform relative to the fewer number of recipe card ads you're going to run. And just look at the CPM, how much they're each producing, and you will see that advertisers will pay more money for fewer, better performing ads.
I'm going to take us off topic for a second because that's a question that comes up a lot with my conversations with bloggers. Confusion between eCPM and RPM.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Oh, this is a good chance to sell everyone on just using CPM. Let's do it. So RPM is like an after the fact calculation that we use to determine how much revenue you made per 1,000 sessions. It's a great metric, I think, that a lot of publishers use to compare how are they doing overall compared to, I don't know, a year ago or last month. And it's a healthy number to look at when you're comparing to yourself. But I think the more important one is how you're actually earning, which is CPM or eCPM. And that is, so a CPM is how much a paid impression, your average, you're getting paid for every 1,000 impressions. So if you have a $3 CPM on an ad unit, every 1,000 impressions, you got paid $3. And then eCPM takes into account what's called fill rate. So Mediavine or any ad management company never goes for 100% fill. We might go for 90, 95, or maybe if it is US desktop, we'll go for 99%. eCPM is just taking out the unfilled impressions from that equation. So focusing on just the paid ones.
So would you say eCPM is a better way to look at your earnings or your ability to earn?
Absolutely. I mean, you can always, as a publisher, increase your number of impressions. That is a thing you can do with Mediavine or if you run your own ads or any other ad management company. The harder thing to do is increase your CPM, which is why we're so focused on increasing your CPM. That is what we're doing behind the scenes all the time at Mediavine. That's why we build solutions like optimized ad experience, why we focus on higher performing ads. CPM is the harder one to get. So that is where we want people to focus. Do you have a high CPM? And then finding that balance. If I increase too many impressions, don't bring that CPM down too much.
Eric, is just me not knowing because it's not my world. Are all the publishers who are Mediavine automatically in the optimized ad experience, or is that something that they have to turn on?
No, that is an opt-in experience. So I do want to warn that some people, well, almost everyone will see a bit of a dip at the beginning because remember, advertising algorithms take time to adjust, and if you lower the number of ad impressions, it's going to take a bit for advertisers to want to pay more for those impressions. That's not an overnight thing. So because there can be a week or two for advertisers' algorithms to update, we don't want to opt people in and tell them, hey, we're going to knock your earnings down for the next couple of weeks, especially not during like, I don't know, Thanksgiving, like Black Friday week. So we want to make it the publisher's choice when they enable that.
Right. Some of the questions that came in were around the impact on SEO and search visibility from ads. And I'll chime in here as well on some of the stuff. To what extent does ad density or layout affect search visibility or performance in organic search? And again, we already quickly talked about the top-heavy algorithm that demotes pages with ads pushing content down. And I know at one point, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mediavine created like placeholders for ads so that they're not affecting the shift in content. Yep. So there's a placeholder and then the ads form in there. Do you have anything, any data, any kind of assessments that you've done internally to this extent to see what changes or how many ads in the layout at which point they start affecting organic performance?
Yeah, I think we, especially when HCU first came out, we did an analysis to like really compare content densities. And the truth is, like, we didn't see a strong correlation between the different densities and people who are hit by HCU. That was kind of the last algorithm update that we ran that kind of data analysis on. That doesn't directly answer your question, but what we can say is that UX wise, we have seen increases in session duration when they tone down the number of ads using optimized ad experience.
Right.
There's more than a 0% increase the session duration that I can tell you.
Right.
Does that mean you're going to have, if you have a better user experience at the end of the day, I think you can tell people you're going to probably get benefits from SEO and other search and social traffic.
Well, it's kind of like it's a secondary signal, right? So it's the user. So we talk about pre-click and post-click as a user signal a lot, and you know, with the leak from the Google API last year and the antitrust case, we now know, and the Marie Hines wrote a whole article about this. We know that Google uses 70 days worth of user data now, click data, to make decisions. So keeping 70 days worth of that information. And we know that the click-through and dwell on a page is a strong signal for Google, whether that is satisfying the user's needs, if the content is satisfying the user needs. So, but the bounce back, you could have amazing content that's really on point and satisfying way answering the question that the user is looking to get answered. But once they click through, they're having a bad experience. So algorithmically, you've satisfied every single check mark to be in that top 10 positions. But once you get the click and they don't dwell, they're bouncing back for whatever reason, whether it's the content or you know, slow loading site or too many ads above the fold, or they've seen this experience before and they weren't happy with it. They bounce back, and that will affect your rankings and visibility. So it's not so much a direct correlation between, from what we're seeing, between ads pushing content down but just the click back to Google or the bounce from the page.
Yeah.
So this is very interesting. Let's talk quickly about ad load and page performance. Which type of ads have the biggest impact on page speed or CLS, and how can publishers minimize those effects without losing income?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before. Like, one of the biggest causes of CLS is going to be any ad that loads above the fold, because at the end of the day, like, your page, we give priority to. And I think any ad management company does the same thing. We want your page to load first, and then we load our ads. And so the issue is, if we're loading our ads after your page loads and it's above the fold, you're going to cause CLS as well as impacting like largest contentful paint and INP. So one of the things that we try to do, like I mentioned before, is just not run those. So if you're still somehow running a sidebar ad or a leaderboard ad, I would discourage you from running those. Those are going to have the biggest impact on your core web vitals, as well as Google looking at that first screen view. The rest, we already go out of our way to make sure we're optimizing. So we lazy load. We'll in fact defer the auction until enough of your page is loaded. So we're already very mindful of that. As long as you turn off those above the fold ads, you should not have a significant impact to your core web vitals.
The optimized ad experience, have you noticed any impact on mobile page speed with that running?
It's a great question. I'm going to take that one back to the data team to do that analysis, but I'm going to go with probably.
I would imagine so. Right?
I would imagine so, right?
There's a follow-up question here. Should low traffic publishers disable certain heavy units until traffic scales?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was one of the bigger proponents back in the day of, when you have lower traffic, really focus on advertising for yourself, is the way I used to put it. Right. So like, if you think about every ad you're going to put in there, should you instead focus on maybe a sign up for your newsletter or to follow you on social, or ways instead like getting them to another page view rather than focusing as much on ads? I just think there's less money to be made for you, and there's much bigger chance for growth.
I love that because I'm noticing a lot of, especially some of the content creators that are coming from social first to publishing. They're very concerned, and I'm seeing some of the questions here in chat. They're very concerned about unhappy visitors from too many ads, and I like that promoting yourself, thinking of yourself when it comes to this, and gaining that visibility and utilizing that space. That's very smart. I really like that. Let's talk about ad placement and design updates for publishers. For publishers redesigning their site or moving from Journey to Mediavine, what are the key considerations for integrating ads seamlessly into the new layout or UX?
I think a lot of my advice is going to sound like it came from forever ago when we were building Trellis, right? And I always go with like uglier is better when it comes to the actual design. Maybe that's not what we should be saying when I was designing themes, but now I can say it. Going simpler, right? Like at the end of the day, I would say like bigger fonts so readers can read better. I know that doesn't always look as pretty as a smaller font. Going with things, everything I'm sure you have told people as well.
Right.
Using things like system fonts. Make sure you still have a sidebar. I know those for a while people are saying sidebars feel dated. Again, look at your sticky sidebar performance for that desktop traffic you have. It still can't be beat. On mobile, just remember, which is how most people are seeing your site. Most sites look the same. They're just focused on your content. So don't hyper obsess about having a giant header area. Shrink things down, get them to your content as quickly as possible. As far as moving from Journey to Mediavine, ideally we should take care of that for you, our team. When you're onboarding with Journey, it's obviously much more self-serve, and you have to worry about those things. When you come to Mediavine, that's our solution engineers who should be making sure you're all targeted right.
Can you talk more about sidebar presence? I like where you're heading with that. So you're saying on desktop, don't remove sidebar.
Yeah, I know there's like a really big design trend for a while to get rid of those sidebars, and we've been fighting that one. I still think we have ways of doing it. We can do what are called like gutter ads, I think is what we call them. Not the prettiest of name, which is if you don't have a sidebar, we'll just stick them in the white space on the side of the content. I think if you have a well-designed sidebar, and I'm sure you're going to want that anyway to show off your about me or your social links, just keep it short and we can insert ads. That is a high viewability, high performing ads. And going back to the diminishing returns argument before, another content ad is not worth a lot, but another sticky ad is in fact worth a lot because you're going to have high viewability and high CPMs as a result.
That's really interesting. Okay. Yeah, I was on that train of a sidebar is useless. Let's get rid of it. I think we got rid of sidebar on our site also at one point, and I was like, it's because it was mobile and you don't actually get in a single column view, it gets pushed down to the bottom. Like, let's just get rid of it. There's no point. But that's very interesting. I'm going to go back to a question that came up earlier about optimized ad experience for those testing OAE. How should they evaluate its impact, and should they still group text in tools like Feast or rely on OAE alone?
Okay, I'm going to go with that second part first because it's easier to answer. And I'm going to tell you, the fewer blocks you run, the better in terms of how OAE, because it's just looking for, it's not going to break up one of those blocks when it's looking for the next place to insert the ad. And you might push it it's beyond where it's the most optimized position to be. I understand for certain sites, it is important to block certain content together and not have it interrupted. So I'm never going to tell you don't ever do it. Just be careful not to overuse it. We're going to be mindful of where we insert ads, but if you have, I don't know, entire screen views that are blocked off, it's not going to be able to do its thing. Now back to the beginning of the question, which was, remind me because I just gave such a long-winded answer.
Yeah, how should they evaluate impact of OAE?
Great question. And honestly, right now, one of the problems with optimized ad experience impact is you're in October, which has been a historically soft October. So that's not just for Mediavine, but for the industry. We think a lot of it has to just do with, honestly, the state of the economy. I think Amazon just announced they're laying off 30,000 employees. So advertisers right now are a little scared to spend. I think so you're seeing just like a delay in the commitment for Q4. We're really hoping everything around Black Friday is still going to pick back up the same way it always does, because a lot of these budgets were already preset But you can see why, if you're trying to judge, if you turned it on in early October and you have depressed RPMs right now and you're judging performance, you may think OAE is terrible. What is this Eric guy telling me to turn on? What I'd rather you look at are stats that don't change, which are things like viewability, as well as the impressions per session that you are running. So you should see a decrease in your impressions per session because you're running fewer ads. That's okay. Just make sure it's, I would say, within a realistic realm. So like 10% decrease is probably a healthy number to see. If you see like a 90% decrease, that means you probably were pretty heavily reliant on in content ads. Turn that back off and email our support team, because that is a very large drop. So make sure you have a reasonable drop, and then make sure you're getting a corresponding improvement in viewability. So if you see a 5 to 10% drop, but you're seeing a 5 to 10% increase in viewability, you just literally lost no money. So that is the right move, because long-term, a 5% increase in viewability means a 5% increase in RPM. So it is okay to give up 5% of impressions. So those two numbers are safe to look at regardless of seasonality and the economy.
So what's the average time frame before revenue stabilizes after churning? And like in a stable environment, let's say, what would be the normal time frame?
So this is going to vary based on the size of your site. But I would say most sites can assume it will take 1 to 2 weeks. That is the longest we've seen it take. So I think we've always warned people about ramp up periods when you first join Mediavine of taking, up to 90 days. So don't think this is going to take 90 days. If you've been with Mediavine for a while, these sites already know you. That all said, we are working. I'm not even sure how much I should announce this, but some of like these advertising tools like Jounce. So Jounce Media is used by a lot of advertisers. That was the thing I was saying before with impressions per session per minute. They're the ones who set that standard. So we're working with Jounce to really measure what's the impact to advertisers. And they're actually going to be creating a list of sites that are meeting these new requirements. And those lists are manual. Yeah. So we're really excited by that partnership. Shouldn't be, breaking that one on your podcast, right?
You heard it here first, right?
Right. Also still tune into the Mediavine webinar where we'll be announcing these things. What I will tell you though is if it's a more manual thing, like an agency putting you onto what's called an allow list or removing you from a block list, depending on the way they go, that can be manual and take longer. But for the most part, you'll see most of the impact within that week or two. And then know that the manual stuff might take months, but just ride it out with OAE and it'll be worth it.
So if OAE, the optimized ad experience, prioritizes high value placements, do bloggers still need to do text grouping or spacing tweaks? I think we
no, and again
earlier.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I will always discourage those as much as you can.
Good. Maximizing RPM efficiency. A lot of questions came around on that, and they're like grouped together. What are the most effective ways to improve RPM? So with minimal ongoing effort. So more money, less effort, please. What metrics should publishers monitor?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest driver to your RPM is going to be that impressions per session that I gave. Because again, CPM is on Mediavine. We are the ones who are optimizing that for you. The thing under your control is impressions per session. But I don't want you to think, let me just go crank up my density to hit that number higher. Instead, focus on how can I get increased session duration or more engaged users? I'd rather people focus on that. And since I'm, talking to an SEO who's going to tell you that's going to help with your SEO rankings as well, it's a double whammy, but like that is the best way to improve your RPM. Right. Just get your users to stay on the page longer.
Right. And there's all kinds of techniques that we cover in our coaching on how to do that. So we talked about larger fonts, shorter paragraphs, extra images, video units. Any other advice on improving that?
I feel like we should go to your tips. But yeah, no, again, it really comes down to just focus on user experience and getting your engaged user and not trying to get them with just one more ad because of your content. Get them with, get them to stay on your content for longer.
Video and recipe card ads. And again, we touched on this a little bit earlier. How do video ads or recipe card ads influence both site performance and SEO?
Let's go with recipe card ads because that's the more fun one, I think, to talk about. Without a doubt, those are, if you are a food blogger or, how-to or craft, and you have a recipe card or a how-to card, that is your most valuable content. That is where the user at the end of the day is probably going to jump to if you have a jump button, which you obviously should, or they're going to scroll to if you don't. Right? We'll get them all to.
Hopefully you have a jump button, right.
So they quick jump, they're going to be there. You have to run recipe card ads. That is where the user is spending most of their time on your page. We have a pretty good default setup. We don't try to go too crazy with them compared to maybe some of the competition. But if you end up with a few ads in that recipe card, I know you're going to think, I have so many ads. Realize most of the web pages you browse on the internet have way more ads than your site. Look at the top 10. You'll be okay. Run fewer in-content ads and keep those recipe card ads. They are the most valuable ones for a recipe card site, or again, how-to or other craft. Video, that is a tougher one. The easiest way to justify it is look at your ad unit report. That thing makes you so much money. Can make you 30 to 40% of your revenue.
Interesting.
Is it the best? Yeah. Is it the best user experience? I mean, I think even as an ad management company CEO, I can say no. It's probably not the best experience on your page. I think we can all agree with that. But at the end of the day, this is all a balance, right? User experience versus revenue. And I think it's going to be very tough to justify turning off a unit that makes you that much money.
What would you say is the best way to implement the video ads so that they're not bothersome to the user?
So that's something we are always personally trying to work on. At the end of the day, like, a lot of people are not watching the videos on your page. I know that's not a thing people want to hear. You spend so much effort building these videos. I think when they're on a social platform and you're on something like, oh, I don't know, TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Reels, like, people are just watching video, period. They're not consuming other form of content, right? They come to your webpage, they're there for, honestly, text, right? And that's the web page experience. So you might have an amazing video that shows how to make your recipe and it's incredible, but most users are not watching it. When we leave videos on click to play and on autoplay, you are lucky to get a 1% to 2% click-through rate. And we would kill for that actually on a lot of the sites. Some sites see sub 1%. So that's a good indication of how many people are actually watching that video. So again, things I shouldn't be admitting as an ad guy, but like, video ads are what matter most, not necessarily the content that's playing, which is why we try to optimize for what we call the universal player, where we are focusing on how many video ads can we get to play on the page. And we are trying to always measure where the best place to put that. And I think we're even testing some new designs recently to be the least disruptive to the user. We're very cognizant of that experience and making sure it is the least disruptive.
In a lot of the sites that we analyzed, the ones that do have video content, it's a big part of this is also the theme and the layout. Mm-hmm. Videos that are above the fold, that kind of show the process of the recipe, tend to have a longer dwell time from people who are landing there. We also noticed similarity there. Some of our larger publishers who we work with, who use Microsoft Clarity, have reported to us that the flat lays of ingredients on recipe posts also tend to be where users dwell the longest. Whether they're out shopping and they're looking at it, because all of your ingredients, and the recommendation typically is, don't just put the ingredient like in a cup, but actually the box that you bought it in, right? So it's easy for users to identify. Is there, and again, just me being, absolutely ignorant about how you guys handle video ads. Is it possible to position the video player on a different part of the page?
Yeah. So we let the publisher, especially if it's going to be a click to play video player, you can place it wherever you want. In fact, if you want, you just turn off, I can't remember the name of the features. I should know all these features by heart. But we have something where I know on the back end, we call it hoisting, which is not the brand friendly term that we use on the front end. But we will bring your video player as high as we can. And that's just to make sure it gets seen earlier, just from an autoplay standpoint. The sooner we can show it, the better. Right. But if you have a place where you want to place it, you can turn that feature off. And that's just us optimizing the placement for you. turn it off, and you can place it wherever you want. We certainly support that.
And you have full control whether you want it to autoplay or click to play, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that we have found a great strategy is you can do click to play, which is going to get you your highest CPMs, by the way. From an advertiser standpoint, if someone clicks play on your video, they're going to pay 4 to 5 times as much compared to an autoplay video. They don't pay 50 times as much, which is why we still do autoplay. Because if you remember, I said the CTRs are generally low.
Right.
So one of the things we do to make up for that is we will have the universal player showing outstream ads, which are what it's called if it's not next to content. So you can place your click to play in the best place possible and not worry as much with a revenue impact, because we can still have the universal player picking up that slack.
So somebody can actually, a content creator can create a video showing step by step, or here's everything you need for this recipe, or recipe explained in less than 60 seconds, and put it right above the fold, below the opening paragraph, saying a little bit of meta information above it. Here's how long it takes to prepare, how many portions it yields, and caloric count, whatever it is, star rating, and then place the video. Watch this video before they get to the main content, click to play, and then from what we've analyzed, this creates a dwell. And we were looking at it from a perspective of, now that we got the click to the page, how can we retain the user on the page? Because we don't want that bounce back to Google. So with a lot of the blogs that we've looked at and the data that we've looked at, and mind you, it's nothing that's publishable. It was just like a handful of assessments. Those videos tended to perform very well. They got clicks, and people actually were consuming. Like for me, looking at a video, especially for a recipe, makes more sense than reading through it before I get into it to see if this is something that I'm actually going to make, or do I, so those tended to do very well, along with those flat lays of ingredients. But yeah, as a technique, if you already do have video, and you definitely utilize it, place it where you're going to capture the user before you expect them to take any kind of action. Obviously, you don't want it to start playing right away, especially with sound. That will get that back button clicked faster than anything, but it does work. Have you done any, and this is like a few follow-up questions here, again, about video. Ideal video length for monetization without hurting speed. Well, you know what? Forget the speed part. For monetization.
Yeah, we're actually exploring a new player technology right now that I'm probably going to regret whatever I say right now, because it might change.
You heard it here first again.
Right? All right. I like giving all the spoilers here. I would say 60 seconds tends to be the number we've given people in the past. 30 to 60 seconds is going to be your ideal content length. And I know that sounds very short. But the truth is, if we're only showing 15 or 30 seconds of ads and you end up with like an 8-minute long video, you don't get additional ad opportunities currently. We are re-exploring this, how we could best do this. But I would say shorter form content is king when it comes to revenue.
We have a few questions here I'm going to take, because we kind of got through a lot of stuff real quick. There's a question. Melissa, I cannot press the button for this one. From Anne, I'm afraid to have more ads on my blog. If I choose the optimized ad experience, and my readers, thank you, and my readers in France hate ads.
I think readers everywhere hate ads. That's a global thing. It's fine.
Right.
Again, things I'm not normally supposed to say. I would say optimized ad experience, unless you are running the lowest density, is rarely going to add more ads to your page. I don't think people should be afraid to try it. But the best thing I'll always say is you have control at Mediavine. Turn it on. Go see what your top pages look like on your phone, on your desktop, and see if you're comfortable with that experience. And maybe, I don't know, ask a couple of your readers in France how they feel about that experience as well. I don't, in general, it should not significantly increase your number of ads.
Another question here, and this came from somebody who, when they registered with Journey, there's a limited opportunity to optimize or change ads. What's your recommendation for how to optimize with what we've got?
Right. Right now, I believe we just give you kind of a slider right now within Journey. Again, I'm going to keep just giving all the fun spoilers. That's why you got to bring the CEO on all the time, right? We are looking at ways to bring more of the same Mediavine features to Journey. I would say hold out a little bit and you'll be able to get more controls. But in the short term, yeah, I don't even think we have brought optimized ad experience, or maybe we have the Journey. I think that might be the optimized setting in there if it's not live today. So yeah, it is, sorry, just that slide at this point.
Gotcha. There's so many questions about how do I improve earnings with minimal effort. I love it. There's so many of those questions.
You push the easy button.
Good. Okay. So would you say that moving over to the optimized ad experience is something that you would recommend to all publishers, or are there some publishers that should kind of tread carefully when they're making that decision?
I'd say 95% of publishers, it's a pretty easy decision. There are some red flags to look out for. If too high a percentage of your revenue comes from in-content, that is when you should be worried. And you can see that again in the ad unit report, what percentage of your revenue is coming from in-content. If it's above, I don't know, 40%, 50%, like tread carefully. And if it's something like 80, 90%, which we've seen on some sites, we aren't running universal player or aren't running sidebar ads, don't turn it on. I'm just going to tell you it's going to decrease your revenue. I would say, honestly, that's the biggest one. And then the other opposite ends of the spectrum are people that are running the lowest density settings. You may end up with more ads as a result, just because it was designed really for people that are running kind of that 24 to 30% ad density, which is where we see most of our publishers. If you're lower than that, you might see some higher ads, which, you know, I don't think it's going to be a problem because all of our OAE people are currently on track to hit those new ad measurements very well. But if you are very hyper focused on not running a lot of ads, you probably won't want to increase your number of ads.
That makes sense. There was another question here, and I don't know if this is even possible. How often should we audit Mediavine settings for leaks in revenue potential?
We are trying to do a better job, I think, at Mediavine of making sure we give you those recommendations. I don't think it's fair to ask you to audit Mediavine settings ever. So we're going to work on ways to surface that for you. So you shouldn't have to. But when things come out like optimized ad experience that are opt-in, we definitely email you. We definitely put it all over the dashboard. You will know when there's something you're missing out on. That is my commitment to you.
Right.
I don't want you to audit.
So we've looked at a lot of data when it comes to post-click. So once the user clicks over, and we're looking at how they progress through the website. So the depth into the site. So not just the page that they landed on. And a lot of the times when we coach and when we provide recommendation, we say, hey, you want to create supporting content. You want to create supporting content. Look at it from a perspective of jobs to be done. What else does the user need to know? Now that they've came here to learn this, they've learned it. What else do they want to know? And a lot of times, with travel, it's a little bit easier because you can be like, oh, now that you've learned what the best places to see, maybe you want to know where to stay, right? Or where to get the best, whatever have you. With recipes, it could be something along the lines of how do you proper preparation, or how to cut up these potatoes, or how to best way to make this bread in a bread machine. Is there a difference in monetization between, and the reason I'm asking this is because I always say, hey, this is another earning potential for you. You're creating content that's on point that the user is going to want to click through and engage with and dwell on. Does it earn differently? Does this content, the supporting content that you're not necessarily looking to rank, but it's there as a supporting piece of content to your primary piece that's ranking, does that earn differently?
So is this on a second page view? Like we're clicking to another?
Yeah.
In general, yes, the second page view will perform a little bit worse than the first page view. Not significantly. When we see this thing, like the drop off in terms of when ad performance happens, it is like, I'm thinking like the old slideshow content that I'm sure you guys have all experienced back in the day, where you had to click like to slide 23 in order to find whatever you clicked on. Then you're going to see significant diminishing returns. I wouldn't worry too much. If you get a small percentage drop, I would still take that additional revenue every day of the week. So you're
Right.
never on a typical lifestyle site. You are never going to create too deep of like a page view depth. So do it. Create that additional content 100%.
Have you noticed a difference between what kind of ad density is best based on the theme or the content of a web page? Like, as an example, like a recipe post versus a roundup.
Yeah, that is a great question, and something that we are always trying to analyze is different page types, especially on more complex. So like we'll have enterprise sites that will have very different templates on their different pages. I know like on a food blogger, that is a great example, a roundup versus a recipe card. Those are two very different experiences. And therefore, I will say should have different ad experiences as well. As I mentioned before, you have the greatest weapon in your arsenal when it comes to ads, and that is recipe card ads on a recipe card page. You don't necessarily have that. One of the reasons why when we built Create, we made sure that we placed ads between the list items. Like it is all about like where can we put those ads, and if you use the blocks, I know I even just said earlier, don't use the blocks. You can also help control where those placements are.
Right.
So think about like where can I get, like see where the default ads are placing themselves, and then you can strategically adjust. But again, always come back to where are the readers dwelling? And if it is a list, are you encouraging them to click to another page on your site or off page?
Right. We've had a lot of conversations with Casey, and we got into like a few heated discussions over this recipe card placement. I preach that the recipe card is a part of your post. It's content on the page. Yes, because of the plugin and the nature of how it's presented, it looks like it's a separate part because there's a border around it. Looks like a section. But it's where you're telling the user to go. You have a jump to recipe button. You're telling the user, hey, everything here is kind of okay, but the main part of this is the recipe card. And the recipe card itself, there's an H2, there's subsections, there's a lot of important information. So when we talk about jobs to be done, I am a user. I searched for how to make apple pie. I landed on your page, and we kind of want to take the user through steps that are logical order operation. Things I need to know before I make the recipe. Now that I've made how to make the recipe, and now that I've made the recipe, what else do I need to know? And that's usually how to serve, how to store, and FAQs and all of that. Typically, bloggers will have a section, an H2 section, make this recipe, how to make this recipe, and they will have instructions with process photography. A lot of the sites that we've cleaned up post helpful content update in 2023 were sites that were essentially just rewriting those steps. So you had no diversity other than different words between what appeared in the recipe card, ingredients and instructions, and what appeared above the recipe card in those sections. Maybe there was a little bit of a difference, but complete redundancy. When we started removing those parts, we started seeing recoveries. We started seeing improvements. So we changed our approach. We said, hey, if you don't have anything unique to add to the instructions that you have in your recipe card, there's no reason to have that section twice, because Google is going to see it as filler content, redundant content. You're just doing this to improve length or keyword stuffing. So we started experimenting with, hey, let's use the recipe card as an actual section on the page. So you have pre-cooking instructions from the top. Here's everything you need to know about the ingredients, some notes, substitutions, things you need to know. The recipe card, this is the central point of the post where users are focusing on making the recipe. And then below the recipe card, everything you need to know, secondary content, right? Casey is looking at it from a perspective of the recipe card should be towards the bottom because you're going to kill off a lot of earning because people are not going to go past the recipe card, right? If it's in the middle of the post, they're not going to read what's below. They're going to just get that information. And the argument is, I click on the jump to recipe button anyways. and I'm going to go there. Have you seen, and I know these experiments have been done, I don't know how much you've done it over at Mediavine, but have you seen a difference between moving the recipe card closer to the top versus having it at the bottom in terms of earning?
So the truth is, a lot of publishers don't do that. So we don't actually have the data set to be able to see publishers that have their recipe card up higher, what happens to, all those other metrics you're talking about.
Right.
We have historically seen people not scroll past recipe cards. That much I can tell you. Like, we have looked at, should we insert ads below the content? And we have tried many experiments. And when we say below the content, I mean below the recipe card.
Right.
There's not a lot of people that go down there. If you look at like comment ads, which we used to run, like ads in your comments, I wish most of your users got down to the comments. And I know personally, I will go down to them on certain types of content, 100%. Like, as a user, I will go down to the comment section. But the average reader does not on a food blog.
Right.
This is what we've seen so far. I would love for us to be able to change that. Everything you just described sounds correct, right? From a user experience, like it should be pre, then, the recipe card, and then the post content. That makes 100% logical sense. We just don't have the data because not a lot of people do it that way. So maybe we can set up an experiment if we have a couple sites running that, or if they have, you were saying Clarity, I think is what a lot of them are using to measure that.
Right.
I'd be very curious what the stats look like. Can we change user behavior to get more people to, scroll past that recipe card?
Right.
We would have no problem with it as an ad company.
It'd be very interesting to see, because one of the main reasons why we want to move it up from an SEO perspective is to cut down on the need to add filler text.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about this from a unique perspective lens. In the recipe card, you want to keep it brief, short, to the point. It's very instructional, bullet pointed. And if you are going to have a section on how to make this, you want to have some kind of a value add, some kind of a reason for why you have it, instead of just a repetition of the ingredients or instructions in there. So we talk a lot about, hey, can we provide any kind of unique perspective, any kind of sensory cues, any kind of things to avoid in that section, in the how to make section outside of the recipe card. And if you can't, then there's no point of having it, and it should only be, the instructions should be within the recipe card. And that applies to any section of your site. If it's in the recipe card, it should probably not be repeated unless you have something that's unique. Otherwise, Google's just going to look at it as filler text. So there's a question here. AI scraping content and how it affects RPMs. Any kind of analysis or research that you've done in that?
In terms of AI content.
So I'm assuming dropping in rankings because of scraped content.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you see it all the time that AI slop can find its way temporarily, I think, a boost in the rankings. My hope is that all that other post stuff that they're measuring of user behavior, as we get more sophisticated as users, AI slop will not be getting the same metrics. The problem is the average consumer, I don't think, can spot AI slop right now, which is a shame. I think especially to something like a food blogger who spends how much time making this thing in the kitchen and photographing it and putting in a day's worth to make a piece of content. And then someone will go make an AI slop version that for some reason performs, I can tell you this, almost as well from an advertiser standpoint. You listen to podcasts by the advertising world, so far they don't care whether they're buying on AI slop or on a quality Mediavine site. And this is one of the fights that we've been having, is like trying to educate. But I think at the end of the day, we need to educate consumers. Like, they need to care more. But as long as the metrics look the same, Google doesn't care and advertisers don't care. And that is the terrible truth. But I know as a user, I care. I'm not going to go buy all these ingredients and cook something and then have it turn out to be utter garbage because AI just pieced together 8 different meals with no actual intelligence behind it.
Right.
That's my long way of saying we don't see a difference in RPM today, but that is something we are campaigning and fighting for.
We look at it from a perspective of, especially in AIO, and I think you and I quickly talked about this earlier. We're looking at keyword data right now. We pull in keywords, and we're looking at what is being, what query types across travel and across food and across DIY are triggering results that have AIO in them. And then we're looking at how the AIO, the AI overview, is formulated. And now we're able to actually look at who's being cited as the source, and then what part of that source's content is being used to synthesize the answer. So we're able to kind of trace it all the way to the source. And the interesting thing is that when we look at it from a perspective, especially in the recipe space, there's much less presence of AI overviews for keyword types that have the word recipe in them. Mm-hmm. There are much more for anything that's how to, or how long. And ingredients also have a lot of AIO. And then when we look at it from what's being synthesized and what's being presented, it's essentially a summary, right? It's a summary, not just the recipe, a summary. So like, how do you keep your pumpkin pie from cracking, right? And there's information from different sources. It's not just how do you make pumpkin pie, which is they're going to give you instructions. And we see that Google is trying to kind of move away from that. We're seeing less and less AIO surface in the how to make a specific dish as a process. But we are seeing a lot of AIOs when it comes directly to answering questions. The reader that reads that response and chooses to click on that little link button and then in the sidebar click on your result has consumed some information that the user is aware it's coming from your site. Mm-hmm. The click-through is now a much more valuable click-through in terms of dwell and in terms of how much time. And most likely the user is going to, Google has produced some data. There's been some studies. I think it's kind of anecdotal, but it's kind of done in the vacuum. But they're saying that this user is much more valuable. Yeah. They're going to stay on the site longer. They're going to look at more pages, most likely subscribe to email lists because it wasn't an impulsive click from a search result just from reading your title and your meta description. They read a snippet, established that they are interested in your information, and they've made a conscious decision to read more from you. Do you see in the future, because bloggers are getting less traffic because of these AIOs, because quick answers, we know this was a case with featured snippets, where a lot of bloggers who used to rank for conversion metric conversions and all of that, ounces to grams and all of that, used to make a lot of money, and then featured snippets came out and that got turned off for everyone. Do you see in the future that those users, those clicks from AIO, the ones that dwell longer, and maybe it is so now, will monetize differently, will make more money to adjust for the less traffic aspect of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same Google study you did when they first announced those numbers. Was it Google I/O or wherever it was, where they're like, we're sending less traffic, but that traffic is
better traffic, right?
Right. The problem is right now is a very small amount of traffic they're sending. Right. So it's a tough thing to measure, when they're sending fractions of a percent compared to what they send with organic.
Right. I
do think we're in the very early stages of, I don't know, what are we calling it? GEO? What do you call optimizing for that?
LMAFO. Yeah.
Okay,
GEO. Generative engine optimization.
Yeah. Right. I like yours better, but yeah. So if it's GEO, I mean, I think that is the future. At the end of the day, I think answering something like that AI is just going to give the answer to the user is not going to be how you get traffic. It's exactly what you're saying is, how can we give an answer and then get them to click over for the more in-depth experience? So like, I don't know how long to put chicken in the oven that I searched for yesterday, probably could be answered by AI, but could it instead say how long to cook chicken, but we instead recommend, the following techniques, and getting me to click over to the page would have been a more valuable experience for me. Right. So yes, I will say I think that is going to be the future. And I hope you are correct and Google is correct. And it makes sense. That is a more engaged user than someone who is just looking for a quick answer of, okay, at 350 degrees, it's 12 minutes, done. Actually, it wouldn't be 12 minutes. I'd be serving raw chicken. So what would it be? 30 minutes. That is not an engaged user. They were just looking for one quick answer, and they probably weren't the user you wanted on your page to begin with. I think Google is trying to find this balance. I think all of us are trying to find this balance. And I do agree that is going to be the future. And I hope it is makes up for it with RPM.
Less what they take it away in traffic. Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we're at 59 minutes and 45 seconds. I do have one comment here. It's not a question. It's a comment. It says, I was just onboarded from Journey to Mediavine. It was seamless and easy. Thank you. Eric, anything you want to tell us in terms of what's happening with Mediavine? Any news, any events that people should be aware of?
I mean, I think we teased at the beginning, but it's been an hour, so we're going to bring it back up. We are bringing back the Mediavine conference. Those who aren't aware, COVID killed the last one. What was it, 5 years ago? And it's coming back, and we're really excited. It's going to be in Boston. I should have the dates memorized. It's next Wednesday to Friday, whatever dates those are.
5th, 6th, and 7th.
5th. Thank you.
Yeah.
Arsen does his research better than I do. I just hop on the plane and show up where I'm told to. November 5th, 6th, and 7th. Incredible content, including Arsen speaking. We have someone, our keynote is actually a company that specializes in just GEO. So we're going to be talking a lot about all of these topics more in depth. And it is not at all a pitch for Mediavine products. It is literally bringing you experts that are going to teach you things. So I still think we have some tickets left. So come. We have a lot of other exciting things happening at Mediavine. I think I teased accidentally 2 or 3 of them on this call.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
Awesome.
So yeah, I would say MVCon. It would be my one pitch.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. I know you're super busy. I really appreciate you coming on board and speaking with us today. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.